fellow romance readers, I'm Amy.
And I'm Sarah, and this is Post-Book Depression. You know that feeling you get when you finish a good book that you didn't want to end?
Have you finished a book and just weren't ready to move on from the story and its beloved characters? You find yourself needing just a little more? This multi-trope romance podcast gives you the opportunity to dig deeper with us into books we love as we discuss all the reasons we can't move on.
Feeling chatty? You can continue the conversation with us on Instagram at Post-Book Depression Podcast or on Facebook in our Post-Book Depression discussion group.
We would be so grateful if you would subscribe to our podcast and take a moment to leave a review.
Are you ready? Let's discuss.
Hi everyone, welcome to the show. I'm Amy.
And I'm Sarah, and today we're going to be discussing the Rom-Commers by Katherine.
The first few minutes we're going to do a brief review of this story without any spoilers. Then we are going to shift into a deeper book discussion that's going to include lots of spoilers, but don't worry, we'll let you know before we do shift into that deeper book discussion.
That's right. So before we dive in, Amy, tell us a little bit about this story.
A woman gets an opportunity to write a screenplay with her Hollywood hero, only to discover he's terrible at writing rom-coms, and she has to teach him all the staples of a good rom-com. Sarah, what did you think about the Rom-Commers?
I loved this story because I love rom-coms, and so I loved the aspect of the screenwriting side of it. It was just so delightful. I enjoyed it thoroughly. What did you think?
I enjoy a good rom-com story too. They're not typically my default selection.
You're an angsty girl.
Yes, I am. So when I find a good rom-com that I enjoy, it always hits just the right spot for me. And so this was just a delight to read. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get into our ratings.
Angst, like 0.25.
I did 0.5.
Yeah.
It's pretty low. Super cute. Not much angst. Humor,
1.5.
same.
Yeah.
This witty has some really fun, witty inner dialogue, I thought. Spiciness.
Okay. I didn't know where to land on this. I put 0.25-ish.
I did 0.
See, that's where I was like, ish, question mark. Yeah, let's go with 0. There's
kissing.
Yeah.
All right,
0.
Tears.
0.25.
I did 0.5. Pretty low. There's some circumstances that are a little bit saddening.
Yeah.
But that's about it.
Overall, this was a 4.25 for me. It was just a really delightful read. Light, not angsty. And so I enjoyed it.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I have a 4.25 and I have it was a fun, delightful read.
Yeah.
Very light. That concludes our spoiler-free quick review of this story. Now we're going to shift into a deeper book discussion, which is going to include lots of spoilers. So if you haven't read this story, please go check it out and then come back and continue on this journey with us through the deeper discussion. We would love to connect with you on social media. You can find us on Instagram at Post-Book Depression Podcast, on Facebook in our Post-Book Depression discussion group, and you can also email us at postbookdepressionpodcast@gmail.com. This story begins with Emma telling us about her former boyfriend, her ex-boyfriend Logan, who is a manager for screenwriters. We learn of Emma's fascination with Hollywood screenwriter Charlie.
Yeah.
First of all, I just want to quickly side note, her obsession with his nostrils was so funny to me.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
That was delightful. But he presents her with an opportunity to rewrite Charles's romance screenplay. He is not known for rom-coms. In fact, he's terrible. He sucks at them. So this is where the story opens. But to get to that point, we need to talk about how Emma's career has kind of been placed on hold for the last 10 years. Let's talk about the setup for this.
Yeah, so Emma, she is a screenwriter. That's what her passion is. That is not what she does for her day job. She teaches. Screenwriting is just something that is a passion of hers. She wants to do it. She wants to make a go of it. And that's kind of where her ex comes in because he's her agent, I guess.
Yeah.
So she has had to press pause on her life. She had been accepted to some prestigious thing in Hollywood for screenwriters 10 years prior, but she was unable to go because her dad needs around-the-clock care. There was a tragic accident, which her mom passes away during this accident. We'll kind of delve more into that later. Her dad is left with some injuries and Meniere's disease, so he needs constant care, and she has been the one to oversee that while her baby sister gets to kind of go finish up school, do her own thing. But they're supposed to be swapping.
How did you feel about the fact that Emma was placing her life on hold for 10 years and then it would be her sister's turn? That's a really long time.
It is. However, I do recognize that, because I thought that's really not fair. And then I realized that her sister is so much younger than her. And I think that she just kind of took on this big sister protective role, that she's more kind of a mother. She kind of helped finish out the raising of her sister, especially with their dad's injuries. So I kind of understand. And I think, to be honest, it kind of comes up later on in the story that she's just continued to make excuses, because I think she feels safe in the place that her life has found her to be, where she's found herself to be at in life. And I think she's terrified of change at this point. I think she feels like she missed her moment. And there is that a little bit that while she craves a different life, there's also, I think, her need to be in control.
And a sense of being needed.
But I also think she feels a responsibility.
Yes.
Because she does, it like I said, it comes up later, but she does feel responsible for the accident that happened to her dad and that took her mom's life, because it was a choice that she had made. But, I mean, no fault of her own. It was just a random, it was a random accident that occurred. But, yeah, I don't know. I guess I understand. I don't know, because when her sister does step in, she still feels like she has to be in control. Mm-hmm. And that nobody else can do it as good as she can. So I don't know.
Especially since she's been doing it for 10 years. I can understand her feeling that way.
Sure.
Knowing they have a system and just because of the requirements that are needed to make sure everything is precise. Like,
sure,
her father's health and life depends on that type of behavior and that type of oversight a bit. So I understand where she's not wanting to let the reins go and really trust someone else to do what she has done for the last 10 years.
I think what I find a little bit baffling is that her sister was at home for a certain point of that time. How did she not know the routine already? That's, to me, what I found shocking, is that she may not do it on a daily basis, but does she have no knowledge at all how to care for their dad? Like, at all?
I got the vibe that it's more of situational awareness and not necessarily the nitty gritty of this thing has this many milligrams of salt. When she was spouting off all those facts, I was overwhelmed. And I just can't imagine having to keep track of that much detail over someone's health. Sure. So I think it was more a situational awareness for her sister, not so much of being in the nitty gritty of the details and the specifics of it all.
Yeah.
It's because of this decade of care and the need that she has to basically give her dad round-the-clock care that she is inclined to not take up Logan on this offer to rewrite Charles's screenplay. Let's shift over into the scene where she's going to visit. She's made the decision. She's reworked her life. She has her sister has agreed to come and care for her dad. So she is on board. And we get to Charlie's estate. And lo and behold, Charlie did not agree the way Logan led her to believe. Let's talk about the scene.
The scene is so mortifying on so many levels. I cannot imagine just being so excited that everything kind of fell into place. Her dad, her sister, super supportive. Like, you have to go. You have to do this. We will be fine.
She's such a huge fan of his. Like,
huge fan.
He's her hero. They say don't meet your heroes, and this is a great example of why.
Yeah. He's really awful to her, just rejecting the whole idea. However, I quickly felt more frustration towards Logan, because Logan led her to believe that he knew he was totally okay. He was accepting of her coming to help, and he lied to Charlie by not telling him anything. So I didn't like the deception on that end. But as the story goes on, you're kind of like, well, it all worked out. But it was just not okay. But I'm like, right there, you guys should feel united because he lied to both of you.
Yeah.
Which they do kind of get on that train. But anyway, yeah, it was, he says some pretty horrible things that she overhears that I would just want to just shrivel up and crawl in a hole.
And I wouldn't want to help a man who said those kinds of things. And I thought her reaction was very
justifiable.
And then also, It's mentioned that Logan sent Charlie a video, and she's watching this video, and it's of her younger, and her mother's in there, and it felt very personal, this omission. And so her reaction also stemmed from just the emotion of that video as well. So she has this emotional reaction. Charlie assumes it's because of him. It's more to do with the video with her mother, and she storms off. Logan tries to get her to come back, and in the end, it's Charlie that comes in the car to get her. She reluctantly agrees to go with him. She thinks he's on board, when really he's just giving her a place to stay for the night, which is also, again, mortifying. And in all this, she hasn't eaten for a couple of days, and when she gets out of the car at his estate, she passes out.
Friend, the levels of embarrassment that are just stacking up on top of each other.
Did you just have so much secondhand embarrassment for her?
I really, really did. Well, the fact that she stormed off, I was like, yeah, you storm off. And then when she's walking, I'm like, you've never been to L.A.
What are you hoping to achieve here?
I wouldn't walk around in that town. Yeah, and then it was no cell service kind of thing. Didn't know where she was at. And then passing out was kind of like the icing on the cake of like, ugh, just take me home. I would just want to go home. I would be so done.
He brings her in, and then they have this conversation. He's agreeing to, okay, I'm going to give you a shot, in the sense of, tell me what you would do to my screenplay to make it better. The fact that he doesn't believe in love comes to light. And I was so proud of her for telling him, I'm not going to give you the critiques because you haven't hired me. And I'm not going to just give you free information. You're either going to hire me or you're not. So he agrees to do kind of a consultant basis. And he wants to have her give the initial critiques. And boy, does she. Let's talk about this scene.
This scene was the best.
It was so justifiable, and I just felt so good for her.
I did too. I'm like, yeah, you slap that binder down with all those Post-its and tell him. It was just such a, like, oh, I was so proud.
He was cocky.
He was so cocky, and she put him
yes.
in his place. I love that he was receptive towards the end, but you could see kind of in your mind's eye, as the scene is playing out, that this guy is picking up really, like, she really doesn't like this. I really did a lot wrong.
Well, it becomes apparent that he has no clue what a rom-com is. He doesn't know anything about it. That is not his forte in writing. And he's just throwing things on paper. He loosely adapts a very well-known screenplay that is a rom-com. Right. And she is just tearing into him.
I know. It was
a delight.
It was the best scene. This was my favorite scene in the book, I think. I just really loved it because he said some pretty horrible things about her, and for her to just be able to lay that out and then prove to him she knows what she's talking about and what she's doing was just so delicious.
And we haven't mentioned, but the reason that he even wrote this rom-com, it had strings attached.
Yeah.
He was expected to write this so that he could get his next big screenplay produced.
But it was never going to make it. It was never going to go to screen. He was just doing this to appease a woman.
Correct. And that seems to be an underlying cause of tension between the two of them, because here she's wanting, if she's going to pour her heart and soul into this screenplay, she wants it to be quality. She wants it to be something worth something.
Right.
And doesn't want to just waste her time doing something for nothing.
Right.
I was frustrated with Charlie's character because he just keeps telling her what she wants to hear. He keeps appeasing her, saying, okay, we'll do it for real. But then on the side, he's having conversations with people. Oh, it's really not a big deal. I'm not doing it for real. She's overhearing these. And it really made me not like Charlie.
I'm going to tell you something. We're going to kind of jump, but referring to the other conversation that she overhears is when they were in that bathroom. First of all, that bathroom ick.
Yeah.
Where you can see the men washing their hands from the women's bathroom. Gross. No. But the whole conversation that she overhears of, he's really been playing her. And he has no intention. That to me, I was just thinking, girl, pack your bags and go.
It took me a long time to like Charlie.
Me too. Because he really had he has a personality that I just don't gel with.
Same.
I mean, it wasn't like instantaneous book boyfriend material for me. However, with that being said, I love this couple for each other. I like how they have these little battles.
Yes.
Because it feels authentic. It feels like how some real life couples would get together. You know? Now, for me personally, Sarah, I'm not down for somebody trying to deceive me. And that's very much what Charlie tries to do.
Yeah.
But it's a rom-com.
He comes around in the end.
He comes around in the end. Everybody calm down. You know, it's fine. Doesn't work for Amy and I if it was a real life scenario, but we're talking about a book here. Moving on.
Let's talk about Emma's and Charlie's working relationship. When they finally agree this is going to be a legitimate screenplay, we're going to put our effort into it wholeheartedly, they decide that it's important for him to understand the true meaning of a rom-com.
Yes.
They need to do some research.
Correct.
Let's start with the first research project that they agree to do. Well, him reluctantly, but he does in the end agree to do it. And that's the line dancing or the dancing scene in a club or had country line dancing vibes. He wasn't going to go, and then when she says she's going to go get a 6-foot cowboy or whatever the height was on her own, he does not like that and quickly agrees he's going to go. Let's talk about this scene.
This scene was so comical to me because when the instructor starts talking, is he Italian? He was Italian, yeah.
Yes.
So, and Charlie's just thinking, no, absolutely not. Are you kidding me? You know, because he can kind of tell that she's taken, all the ladies in the room are taken with this Italian man who can somehow pull off a cowboy hat, which is just such an odd pairing in my mind's eye. But yeah, we start to have these little moments where Charlie, because they've been writing together for a while, and their work relationship really does vibe. They gel really well. But you start to get these little moments of Charlie likes her. And so that's one of the things I do feel like it's super frustrating that he's still being deceptive.
Yes.
Because he does have feelings for her. There's these moments of...
He doesn't believe in love, but he definitely has feelings.
Yeah, he has feelings. And then you kind of question that throughout. But this scene was just comical because... Who thinks that you're going to show up to a country line dancing and it's going to be an Italian man? Not I, but I loved it.
One of the most important scenes in a rom-com screenplay, in my opinion, is when they finally kiss.
Yes. And
the tension that builds up to that. And they have a conversation later on into the story about doing research for a kissing scene. I found this scene really delightful for a few reasons. The biggest one being that she's recommending he call up an ex or just some starlight in Hollywood to practice this kissing scene. And all the while as a reader, you're thinking, you, he should practice with you. And then when that realization comes, who else would understand this situation better than the two of us? And maybe we should practice the kissing scene together. This was a delight.
I loved this scene because I thought, finally they're going to. Friend, it does not end in a way that you think. I mean, she kind of gets her feelings hurt because she thinks he's repulsed by her.
Yeah.
I love, though, that you kind of know as the reader that he's not repulsed by you, like, at all. That's not what's happening. At first, I would sit there and be like, no, why are you... She has feelings for him. We kind of know that, whether she recognizes it or not. And I'm like, why are you suggesting all these other people? That sounds like torture to me. To sit there and watch a guy that you're developing a crush on to kiss somebody else? Oh, no.
Were you on the fence back and forth wondering why he was so hot and cold until we finally figure out why?
Yeah.
His behavior was just questionable to me.
Yes. I was back and forth of what's happening, what's not, because I've never been so conflicted with a male main character.
I agree 100% with that statement.
I was really conflicted with Charlie.
Yes.
Because he had his, likable points.
I almost text you because you read this story before me and asked, when is Charlie going to redeem himself? Because I'm really struggling to connect with him. This was like 25% in. So it was still early on. And then I quickly got on board.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, you kind of are like, Charlie. I had to look at it from a standpoint of everybody has their own type of what attracts them. Yeah, I don't know. I was very frustrated with his hot and cold. I couldn't understand it. I did try to think about this practically, though. Like, okay, if this was a real life situation, you would not want to muddy the professional relationship. She's got to stay there. They've got to finish this.
That's
They've
true.
got to write this. So I did kind of understand, like, he was being very mature and adult about it, which, gross. Why would you want to do that?
Especially in a rom-com.
Yeah, that's no fun. Yeah, he was very hot and cold, and I couldn't figure him out. Like, even, it was kind of towards the end that I was like, oh,
Yes.
I get it.
One of the funniest things to me in their relationship was the scene where they're writing at the kitchen table and she looks over and there's a guinea pig
Yeah.
sitting on the table. His name's Cuthbert.
Yeah.
Let's briefly talk about Cuthbert.
That was interesting. He shares custody with his ex-wife.
Margot.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting.
It brought some comedic relief to
It did.
things.
That's definitely where some of the humor is, because you see a different side of Charlie when it comes to his guinea pig.
100%.
Did it like have an outfit or something at one point? Am I imagining that?
Did he? It's possible. I wouldn't put it past Charlie to put him in an outfit. He would
Anyway.
like cut up lettuce for him. And
Yeah,
all
it was
the
just like
cute little quirks.
Yeah.
One of the big character defining moments for Charlie, in my opinion, was when Emma goes out. She's a huge swimmer. And she realizes his estate has a massive swimming pool with a high dive. She loves to swim every day. That's what she does to stay healthy and fit. And we learn about Charlie's fear of water in general. We learn that he had a near drowning experience. When he was young, he was trying to reenact a Harry Houdini move. His parents were fighting when this was happening. And then his mom ended up leaving in that whole situation. So he has just had this really traumatic event around water, and he's terrified of water. I love that Emma offers to get him to start doing exposure therapy while she's swimming, to just be outside by the water or sit in the steps. And the progression of this, I feel like, is really kind of character growth for him. And I want to specifically talk about the scene. It's a little further into the story. I'm jumping around just a little bit, but there's a celebratory dinner, which we'll back up about why there's a celebratory dinner here in a bit. And she gets stood up. She's so upset by this. She decides to move forward with the dinner, even though that they've had this big fight with one another. And she's put together this massive dinner for him. She's had some wine set out, and he stands her up, and she goes through the whole bottle of wine. And when he finally comes home, very late, I might add, she is up on top of the diving board. Let's talk about the scene.
The scene was intense.
It was.
It was an emotional night for her. I cannot imagine how startling that would be for him, because if you think about it, you have like a trauma and a fear the way that he does. That's an intense thing to, first of all, endure as a child, and then to attach it as in your mom still left, like after that, which was heartbreaking in itself. And then to see her up there, I mean, he gets up there, he's like pleading with her, you got to get down.
And she's had a whole bottle of wine. So you add in intoxication to that as well.
Yeah, and she's kind of taunting a little bit. So that's kind of, I when she falls in, it's pretty traumatic. I can't even imagine having to endure that.
And in this scene, we're reading from her point of view, and her thought process. She's in the waters. I'm gonna drown. I've had too much to drink. I'm in this dress.
This was foolish.
The dress that her sister sent to her. It's flowy, and she's struggling.
Yeah. So he jumps in and to rescue her, which I thought, man, you've come so far. If you couldn't even put a toe in the water, to being able to jump in and save her. Yeah, she's very apologetic. She realizes, I mean, when she hit that water, it was very sobering. Well, before that.
Yes.
She was kind of sobering up, and she fell unintentionally. Yeah, the scene was just really sad. But yeah, I love that we kind of see this growth in his character to kind of work past some trauma. And I love that she's able to kind of help him through. I liked that little side aspect outside of the writing professional work relationship that they have, to kind of see a character on a more personal level and things.
I think so too. Let's back up to learn a little bit more about Charlie and the reason he's writing this rom-com. He's got some major writer's block. We learn a lot of things about him, his diagnosis that he had years back, his ex. Let's just spend a little bit of time talking about Charlie and his baggage.
Yeah, so as you've mentioned, Charlie's had some writer's block. 4 years ago, he was married to Margot, and he had kind of been going through some things personally that he never communicated with his wife. He's diagnosed with soft tissue sarcoma. On the day that he's going to finally tell his wife, because if you kind of connect it all, the day that he had the near drowning experience and his mom left, it kind of did something it did something to him mentally where he doesn't ever want to be sick. He doesn't want to ever show that he's struggling with his health or anything like that. So he kept all this quiet from his wife.
Yes.
He goes home to tell her something. They kind of interrupt each other. I need to talk. He says, go ahead. She's divorcing him. He has cancer. So they end up getting a divorce because he doesn't want her to stay with him because he just told her he has cancer. Ever since then, going through treatments and surviving that, he hasn't been able to write. Now, with that, he's had a screenplay that he really wants to make it big. And he's been working with some other people, and there's a woman who she wants this rom-com. In order to get his other movie that he really, really, really wants to be made, he has agreed to write this rom-com, which he has no intention whatsoever to see the light of day. But he's trying to make it appear as though it's going to work.
Yeah.
So he's kind of kept all this, but he eventually tells Emma. They kind of have a conversation about why he got divorced, his cancer, his recovery, and the truth about why he hasn't written anything. And her whole question is, how have things been put out? And it's things that he's just kind of had. But he's been struggling, and he was hoping that this rom-com would unleash something.
It's in this conversation where he opens up about his history and all of these things, these traumatic things that have happened to him, that she opens up in reciprocation of what happened to her dad and mom. So let's just shift over into that scene where she's talking about how she's gone on this climb with her family. This was her graduation celebration. This is the moment where she opens up to what actually happened on the side of that mountain.
Right. So all of her family wanted to go to the beach, and she wanted to go camping and hiking, and her parents are on a rock climbing.
Yeah, they're rock climbing, and she's on one belay, and he's at the top.
And there's an accident. Her mom is killed, and her dad is left with life-altering
we've
injuries.
Talked about his injuries.
So we've made mention of that. So she just kind of confides in Charlie that, it was her idea. Everybody wanted to go to the beach. And so the struggles that she's kind of felt with that. That's
the guilt.
Guilt, the reason why she feels responsible for taking care of her dad and being there for him. And so, they just kind of have this heart-to-heart of these really serious life events that kind of set the trajectory of where they are at now.
They have a conversation eventually. He's been hot and cold. We've talked about that. Push and pull this whole time. They have the moment after her falling out of the diving board and him rescuing her. They have kind of an intimate moment. And before she can be embarrassed by that, she wakes up to the news that her father has fallen and in her sister's care, and she has to rush home to be with him. She does not get an opportunity to say goodbye to Charlie or give him any kind of explanation. She literally runs out the door with nothing. She doesn't take any of her belongings. She just goes straight to the hospital and has this conversation on the way there with her sister, which is very disheartening for all parties involved. That poor driver in the car had to witness this emotional conversation between her and her sister where they're blaming each other for these traumatic things happening. She's blaming her sister for not keeping a watchful eye on her dad, and her sister's blaming her for her mother's death. And it's just this explosion of verbal diarrhea, for lack of a better phrase. This creates a lot of tension between her and her sister upon Emma's arrival to the hospital. Her dad in the end is okay, and we learn that pretty quickly after we get there. We get the realization that her sister had done everything. It wasn't her sister's fault. Basically, her dad was going out on a date with the neighbor and just happened to trip down the stairs. He has these episodes that he can't control where he just loses his
equilibrium.
Yes. And so we quickly learn that her sister was not at fault. She's starting to kind of have some forgiveness in her heart for the blame that she's placed on her. We also get to experience her sister and Salvador. They want to have a quick wedding in the hospital, which was so strange to me.
Yeah, it was such a rom-com thing to do.
Yes, it was. While her dad is in the hospital, we learn about different nice things that are happening for him. The nurses are having extra food and
upgraded room.
Yes, and all these just wonderful things. And one of these famous Hollywood actors just happens to be in the hospital visiting other people. And as a reader, it's Charlie. He's pulling strings for that, which I loved about him.
I will say on that, I was a little disappointed that the actor friend of Charlie did not recognize her, that they had just met like a week ago or maybe not a week ago, but but then I'm like, well, yeah, okay.
Especially if Charlie was the one making the request. He would have said.
Maybe, though, he didn't want to let on.
Maybe so. Emma makes it clear that she doesn't want anything to do with Charlie. She's feeling embarrassed, and she's just trying to put some space between us. They're not in a good place communicating because he's been so hot and cold with her, and she's very confused by that. She's made it very clear that these are some boundaries, and I want you to respect them. I don't want you to call me. I don't want you to do all of these things. And it's through Logan, actually, that we learn that Charlie has put out this writing debut. Surprise, this rom-com. He has rewritten their story. The fact that they're two screenwriters and they're working together, and he basically tells their story.
Right.
How did you feel about that?
I loved it, and I love that they used the title, the Rom-Commers. I love that he attached her name to it, and that she was getting recognition for something that she worked hard on.
She was supposed to be a ghostwriter. Right,
and I was really proud of him. That, for me, was kind of... I mean, he already had kind of a turning point, because the night that her dad is injured and he rejects her, because she offers him herself, and he rejects her, and she's mortified and hurt and all that, which justifiable of why he did. She's intoxicated, but he had already started redeeming himself in his character to me. Not that he needed redemption necessarily, but I had more of a fondness for him.
Yes.
So I love that he has done all these things behind the scenes. Like you said, we know that it's him doing all these things at the hospital for her dad. And then just to do this is huge. It's huge for her career.
Yeah.
It was really incredible. I loved it. I love that they fly her back out to LA, and she doesn't want to see Charlie. There's the award show. She's supposed to just kind of go up onto her room.
All this time, Charlie has had an underlying cough.
Yes.
And so you've got this niggling sensation in your mind of, is he sick again?
Yeah.
What's happening? And it's not until she gets to LA for all this stuff that Logan has orchestrated that he tells Emma, I have a video from Charlie that you need to watch. I'm not supposed to show it to you right now. He didn't intend for you to see this now, but I really feel like you need to watch it. Let's talk about the video and the award show.
So the video starts out that it's Charlie saying, if you're watching this, then I'm not here anymore. Mm-hmm. Friend, I really thought she killed him. I thought that Charlie was dead.
Did you?
I really did. I was like, this is not a rom-com. I thought to myself, oh my gosh, this is going to be a book that they are going to kill off the main character. And the love story is that he made her career happen.
You doubted the integrity of the contract between a rom-com author, which they had already outlined in the beginning of the story.
You can't kill the guy.
You can't break the contract. So the fact that you went that direction, I love that so much.
I was, with all my heart, on this train. I was tearing up. My little, what are my points for my tears? 0.25. Right there. I know all the things with her dad and her mom.
You only gave 0.25 tears for someone you thought was dead.
I know. I really did. I know. I should bump that. I won't. But I just really thought he was gone. And so I kept I was kind of mentally arguing with myself. He's not really gone. You know he can't be gone. And then I was like, would that be something that this author would really do that? So anyway, it's the whole thing. I was on the train for a minute. But bear with me, everybody. I got off the train. So she goes down. It's basically telling her he does have feelings for her, and the reason why he wouldn't sleep with her that night and all these things. It's just
was because he was sick.
Yeah. And he didn't want to leave her, guys. Yeah. Anyway, she goes down to the award show.
Well, he also mentions he didn't She knew that she would feel responsible for taking care of him.
Yes.
Just like she did with her
Yes.
dad, and he didn't want that for her.
Yes.
Very noble.
Yes, is noble. Noble stuff. Goes downstairs. Who's standing on stage for the award?
Your
The sigh
dead
of
hero.
relief that I breathed. And then, he's kind of known for being like nonchalant. Like he will eat fast food during an interview kind of thing. Like milkshake, he's like full on just doesn't care. Known for his corduroys, which I thought was so cute.
It's very casual, yeah.
And very casual. So she gets down there. He's standing up there. The guy answers his phone. And all I'm thinking is...
And he's on stage
he's got
accepting an
cancer
award.
again. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's got cancer again. She didn't kill him, but he's gonna die anyway. We're not gonna see that. And when he answers the phone and breathes a sigh of relief, Amy, I was feeling all these emotions that Charlie was like when he's like, I just had bronchitis.
It was just bronchitis, everyone.
It's like, did you know that on a scan it can look like, or an X-ray? Oh, I felt like Charlie in that moment, that relief he was feeling, because I really did. I thought he was dead. And then I thought, no, he's alive, but he's gonna die. Anyway.
Wow.
I know,
I
I'm
just
so
went on a really
embarrassed.
exciting journey with you right now.
And I'm saying it out loud for the first time and realizing how humiliating it is that
Oh,
I fell
stop.
into that.
I love that you did. It's very entertaining. Well, we learned that her dad will shift over to their happily ever after, and the end of the story, her dad marries their neighbor, which I just found delightful. Good for him.
Cute.
And Sylvie and Salvador, they go to med school so that they can take care of her dad and be on that path for their life. She moves to LA.
I know.
And I loved that too. And he just kept asking her to marry him, and the fact that she didn't for a long time. I loved the overlying theme that the end of this story really brings home, and that's appreciate your person and be grateful loudly.
Yeah.
I just love that idea so much, and showing appreciation in the small things for your partner or your friendships or just the people in your life, and being grateful out loud to them. If you love them, tell them so. If you admire them, tell them so. If you find them brave, say something. I just love that mode of encouragement for life.
I do too. I thought the story was really delightful. There was a lot of growth. There was a lot of heart. And it was just a nice, light, rom-com-y read. So that concludes our discussion of the Rom-Commers. We hope you enjoyed this episode and you want to continue the discussion with us. You can hit us up on Instagram at Postbook Depression Podcast or on Facebook at our Postbook Depression discussion page. You can also email us at postbookdepressionpodcast@gmail.com. Until next time, keep reading.